Good morning. Angetu's PC needs to cool down, so I suppose he'll be late. But welcome to this live stream. Today's topic is going to be on Atlantis in Plato's Timaeus and Critias, and also I would like to end with the ideal state of the Republic. Okay, so everybody, I am Countess One. Welcome to my live stream. I'm so sleepy now, so my face is quite puffy, but we shall begin while we wait for Angetu. Okay. Okay. So in order to prepare for this live stream, I read some papers that are listed in the description box below, and I've also Googled History Channel, National Geographic, BBC Earth. I visited their website so that I could build the world, the Atlantis world. Thought it'd be more exciting if I could describe the city. Hi, House Mumbler. Good morning, everybody. So Atlantis is a lost city mentioned in Plato's Socratic dialogues entitled Timaeus and Critias, and they are the only records of its existence. And it was not until the 19th century that interest in Atlantis was renewed, although some books written around 15th century made references to it. Okay, so many scholars argue that Plato's Timaeus was to draw attention to the ideal state as laid out in the Republic. I thought I should pay respects to that sentiment to see where it will lead us, so that will be the direction of our discussion. Okay. For now, it pays to know that we can take from Plato's works a few key points, and that is we can conceive of a single idea or form of law, legal systems, government, cities, states, as if they were the best versions for that category, and that reality is merely imperfect imitations of them. With that said, let's start with the Atlantis. Okay, so the story of Atlantis was told in the Timaeus by Critias, who was a politician, a real dude. But in this dialogue, he's one of the characters, or in other words, he's one of the interlocutors. Okay, Critias was a politician, as I said, and the other interlocutors were Timaeus himself, who was an astronomer, and Hermocrates, another politician. So what happened was Critias retold the story of Atlantis that came from his grandfather, who knew Solon, who had returned from Egypt, with the story having conferred with some Egyptian priest. So the grandfather said Solon wanted to write a poetry about the Atlantis myth, which would have become a foundational text of the society. But when he returned, he found Athens to be in a deplorable state, so he went into politics instead. Okay. The description of the Atlantis will begin shortly, but as I do so, I would like you to construct a mental picture of the Atlantis, and I would also like you to think of anything you would like to add to the description that I'll be providing. Also, how have you come to know of Atlantis apart from Plato's work? That is, in video games, novels, and how different was it? Okay? Okay. So, Atlantis is a legendary city occupied by the Atlanteans. They were powerful and ambitious colonialists. They conquered parts of Africa, Mediterranean, and Europe until they were stopped by the Athenians. Their patron was Poseidon, and his son Atlas ruled over Atlantis. Hi, Angetir. Atlantis was created by Poseidon as a mountainous island with fertile land, which produced abundant food, and they were rich in metals and with wildlife. Their city or infrastructure was decorated with bronze and tin. At the center of the city was Poseidon's temple, made of silver and an ivory roof. It was surrounded by a wall of pure gold and decorated with golden statues. The main features of the city were that there were fountains everywhere, bathhouses, horse racing track, and they had an impressive fleet of warships. Their favorite pastime is to chase and sacrifice bulls. Anyway, at that time, they were considered to be technologically advanced. So they were in fact a formidable opponent, powerful and prosperous. But they were also unjust. Their passions were unbridled and they wanted more and more. They wanted more possessions and power. And Zeus saw this and planned to punish them. Okay, but before that, I'd like to point something out, and that is the legal system of the Atlanteans. Hi, Dion. Yeah. Oh, the legal system of the Atlanteans. So they were ruled by kings who held the power of life and death. So they were divine, all of them, at least in the beginning. And each king follows a different set of rules. Poseidon, who set law, and this was inscribed on pillars in his temple. Okay, Atlanteans obeyed their laws until their divine nature eroded due to intermixing with mortals. Hanging. Is it hanging for everybody else? Seems to be okay for me. But I can see you guys. Is it hanging? Oh, negative is fine. Okay. Maybe you should go out and come in again, Dion. What was I saying just now? Oh, the crucial distinction here, sorry, as I said just now, is that Poseidon gave the Atlanteans their laws. But in Athens, whose patron is Athena, she gave them the means by which to create their own laws. And that is reason, okay? So Plato is also advocating the same thing. You must use reason. Okay. So another interesting point to note here is legend says that Athena and Poseidon competed in a chariot race in order to win Athens because, Athens was very great and awesome and everybody wanted it. But in Plato's work, Athens was given to Athena and Hephaestus, and that was decided by lot. Okay, so why did he do this? Plato sees the divine as patron for two of his classes in his ideal state. This ideal state is going to be in his Republic. Okay? It was already in his work entitled The Republic. Okay, now let's go to ancient Athens. Oh, by the way, guys, do you notice any difference about my description of the Atlantis with your idea of the Atlantis? I like to hear them. I mean, like, you guys watch the video game. I'm sure you have read books on it, right? There were many books. Watch TV. Video games will definitely be one. Anime, I suppose. Okay, well, you guys think I'm going to describe the ancient Athens, okay? Ancient Athens, I meant Athens that was before the time of Plato and Critias, the guy telling the story. A lot of media makes references to Atlantis. Yeah, I don't know if you heard the part in the beginning. I said that the interest in Atlantis began again in 19th century. Oh, it's okay. So yeah, until then it was crickets. Okay. Anyway, let's go to the description of ancient Athens. Ancient Athens was accomplished and not easily defeated, but they were moderate, okay? They were different from Atlantis because they were moderate. They were ambitious. They were not ambitious, sorry. They had self-control about liberty and wants. And one notable feature was that they had the best laws and constitution. And they all did best deeds, okay? Basically, they were awesome. They had a strict hierarchical system, no different from that described in Plato's Republic. So that's why I wanted to talk about the Republic. Yeah, they were very powerful, according to the myth. They had awesome fleet and they were very technologically advanced and rich and they have everything. But Athens was also very strong. Okay, she's very small, but she's strong. And she could singularly defeat a formidable and powerful enemy that is Atlantis. And it was also a victory sanctioned by the divine, such that when Atlantis lost, she was swallowed by earthquakes and forced deep into the sea, where she will remain underwater for all time. One Swedish guy in the 15th century said Atlantis is Sweden. And it's quite funny. Yeah, because the story that was told to Solon, he was told by Egyptian priest, who also worshipped Athena, but at that time they called her something else. But it's only a myth, I think. But we shall discuss that later, whether it's only a myth. Okay. The way the story was told, Angitur says Scandinavia is related to the Hyperboreans. Oh, can you tell me more about the Hyperboreans? I don't know who they are. Sorry, I haven't had my morning tea. Anybody had more information about the Hyperboreans? Okay, anyway, while Angitur writes, I would like to ask you guys a question, okay? Why do people think that Atlantis actually exists? Huh? Because so far only Plato wrote it, right? The source of this story is in Plato's work. And then nobody wrote about it except for one dude in 15th century, but he was talking about it while trying to conceive of an ideal state also. So it's no way saying that Atlantis actually exists. But why do people now think it actually exists, guys? Because legend is powerful, Dion says. That's true. And that was the point that Plato wanted to make also, you know. And people love mystery, that's true. And Goethe says, I think they come from Russia and moved to Scandinavia when it was more isolated. Yeah. It was. Okay, anyway. Plato, he lived in a volcanic and tectonic area. So this sort of disastrous events can be said to logically exist, and in fact it has happened in the past. Okay. Also, Plato never said it was a myth. He identified it as logos, that is reason or explanatory account. And get to say, yeah, mystery behind it inspire people imagination. Yeah. Because it did happen, right? This is not something illogical. It has happened in history before, and he must have known about it. Okay, but there are other evidence in his work to show that it is actually fiction. Okay, sorry guys to burst your bubble. Okay, that's number one. Destructions happen in cycles, and over time, from the ashes, new civilizations regrow. Okay, they will be referred to such events as myths, especially when it happened thousands of years ago. There's evidence all around the world that a great flood occurred. Yeah, it's true. And many, I know of at least one, the volcano in Indonesia. I think it's called Krakatoa or whatever. So when it erupted, it was so great that it destroyed itself. And also it destroyed some people. So Pompeii was also destroyed, not by flood, right, but by volcanic magma and ashes. So there were many evidence, but later we will speculate, okay, where Atlantis is, and there is a very strong contender. But you guys have to wait. For now, you must listen to why this story is fiction. Okay, so myths were retold for a number of reasons apart from entertainment, and that is to gain support, acceptance for a claim, and status quo in a society. So in the story, Plato's story, as the events were being recounted, the priest, the Egyptian priest, made a remark about people having young souls compared to time. So if we compare ourselves to time, we're actually considered very young, especially when compared to events that happened thousands of years ago. And don't forget, at that time, they didn't have internet, right? So are we to trust these stories then? Especially if accuracy and truth cannot be guaranteed, because it depends on both knowledge and reliable method of recording and also relaying the subject, right? So word of mouth is not very reliable. So question, have you guys played the whisper games? You know, when you were young, you were supposed to sit around in a circle and everybody have to whisper one sentence, the same sentence to everybody. And then what's the result? It's always different, right? Sometimes quite nonsensical, isn't it? Yeah, Chinese whispers. So this is another point, right? The story being retold could have been exaggerated or changed or, yeah. That's why Plato didn't say, talk about Atlantis directly. He says it comes from one dude whose grandfather knew another dude who went to Egypt and talked to priests and everything. Exactly. So that was the point he wanted to make also, Plato. But we will see why he did it, okay? It's very clever. Everybody knows that, right? He's very clever. Okay, point number 2. Solon. Solon, the guy who went to Egypt, the one who heard the story, was a real person and he existed before Plato's time, okay? He was known as the founder of modern Athenian state and democracy with a mixed constitution, and courts were being made authoritative. Okay, it's totally new at that time. Now, the backdrop of the dialogue was a festival celebrating Athena, and it was common practice back then to conduct panegyric public speech. Panegyric means it's like a eulogy, okay? Basically, you conduct a speech and basically say nice things. Usually you do this for a funeral, but at that time they also did it for festivals because this festival was celebrating Athena, and so they wanted to say nice things about Athens, okay? But, okay, they told the story of Atlantis, but they were singing praises of Athens, but not Athens at the time, but ancient Athens, the one who defeated Atlantis, okay? Now this was a salient point, right? Very important, right? How come they are not praising Athens at that time? And also he tried to make a difference, to point a difference. That is, at that time they had better laws, they had good laws, and people were striving for the common good and the importance of community above self. Okay? That is public policy. At that time, there were concerns about Athens' maritime ambitions. And the message was, if Athens were to continue down this path, it will meet the same tragic end as Atlantis did. So Plato, he wanted a paradigm shift. He wanted a constitution which will result in the abandonment of maritime ambition. And with that, how he's planned to do that? By advocating a practice of moderation, an exercise of self-control, and also restraint of passions. Okay? Last point is legitimacy, which was also a very hot topic back then. Okay? By that I mean laws and constitution. Okay? So the question was, is the legitimacy of law, does it depend on the source, or is it inherent in the content itself? Buddhism, what's that? Please explain more, Ingatir, about Buddhism. Sorry about my ugly mug. Please explain more Buddhism. That's my voice quite sexy now. Moderation, yeah. He wanted to moderate because he feels like the reason why people get corrupted is because they keep wanting more and more things, okay? That's why Atlantis fell. They were greedy. They had everything, but they still wanted more. So they went out and conquered other lands. That's how they fall, okay? There are more interesting things he said later. Okay, so just now what I was saying, I was saying about the authority of law or constitution, okay? Since around that time, it was decided that the codification of laws was to be completed. Codification of laws means to be written down, because sometimes law, not necessarily written down, okay? Modern times. Yeah, exactly. People will not change, I think. And I think he knew it also. Okay. One theory is that he wanted to draw attention to the banality and cliche of authority. Okay, he said, why you keep referring back to history? That's what he's trying to say. Okay. So in fact, he's mocking. Okay, guys, if Atlantis really exists, how can we find it? I want you guys to describe the process of how you will go about looking for the real Atlantis. Okay, go. If you are a archaeologist or whatever, how will you go about looking for the real Atlantis? And there's other extra two dudes. Come in and participate in this discussion. Where will you find Atlantis? How will you go about looking for it? I just want to know the process. While I drink my tea, so I can wake up. How's Mumler? They couldn't find MH370. That's very true. They even had the tracking capabilities. They knew supposedly where to look. That's true. How are they going to find Atlantis, right? Rickety structure that looks how Atlantis was described. There was actually many, you know. There's even underground cities. There was a suspicious rock formation. Yeah. All we knew is that it's very big. All this technology, and yet we cannot find it. That would be funny if they were looking at MH370 at the wrong place. How much money they spent on it looking for this thing? Yeah, I think it was destroyed as well. I think the plane was completely destroyed. So only parts of it were floating around. This could be quite hard to locate. But Atlantis is a city, right? Horse mumbler? What do you think, horse mumbler? Also, I think finding things underwater is really hard, right? Because you have to need to have access to it. And how are you going to access it, to be honest, if it's below? And who's going to spend the money in a submarine looking around? Horse mumbler say, look at the Eye of Africa. Why you look at the Eye of Africa? A small walled city like a suburb. No, but Atlantis was big, eh? It's not small. Science sonar. Okay. Tell me about this thingy, Dion. So you're gonna make a submarine and then go around looking for it? But cool, right? Because like I said, they had walls of gold and they had golden statues. Whoever find them will be very rich. Yeah, there are. It's true. They found underwater cities and they found also very suspicious rock formations. So they said, "Oh, this must be Atlantis," but you know, Atlantis is big. And maybe even Atlantis exists. It was buried so deep underground that you can access it even if you wanted to. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So this is how you're gonna go about it. Okay. So look at the core of truth. And somebody said, "What? You look for clues, right? So you need to look at Plato's account and see which fit. And then you reject everything that sounds like a distortion or exaggeration. But people actually did try to look, okay? And the case can be made for almost any part of the world. But the most likely candidate is the Greek island of Santorini. It was partly destroyed by volcanic eruption about 3,600 years ago. And at that time, they were called Thera. They had trade networks, fine art, they were considered advanced and prosperous. And they also had lots of mountains, and it was a volcanic island, so it fit description of Atlantis. But the problem is that there is the size. They're not big enough. And the location in the Mediterranean, they were off the coast of Spain. So that's why other people say, okay, maybe it's the present Antarctica. Okay, and just now as I was saying, there were many civilizations had been wiped out by natural disasters, including floods and volcano, and also the Minoan civilization who occupied the island of Santorini. They were wiped out. Gobekli, how do you pronounce this? Gobekli Tepe was said to be buried 12,800 years ago. Yeah. Would he have known Plato? I'm sure he did. Like I said, it could be anything. So people found also a prehistoric city in coastal Spain. And also there was a suspicious undersea rock formation in the Bahamas. So basically, yeah. Okay, guys, this comes to the part where it's more philosophical than anything. It's going to be on the analysis of Plato's Republic. This is important, right? Because the point of the story was he's trying to tell people, hello, guys, you're doing it all wrong. And so I will tell you what it is like to be in an ideal state, okay? That was his whole purpose. Now, let's revisit Plato's work entitled Republic because it contains a conception of the ideal state, which is relevant to the Atlantis myth as we have just seen. In Plato's ideal state, society is hierarchical, and people have specific duties, obligations, and they take up positions according to their capabilities. Dion says, to be honest, my starting point will be to determine if there is any reasonable assumption that Plato actually referred to a real city. Actually, I given four, I think, sort of not evidence or arguments to say that it was actually a fake city, even though he didn't say it was a myth. He didn't say it was a mythos. But he said it was a logos, which means it is like a story, like a what do you call that now? Like a account, an account. He says, but he wanted to transmit the moral of the story. Okay, it's like a moral of the story. I think people need to stop taking things literally, lah. That's what I think. Literally. That's what happens when I cannot wake up. When I haven't wake up in the morning, I cannot pronounce R properly. Okay. What I said just now. Okay. So Plato's ideal state. Society is hierarchical, and people have specific duties, obligations, and they take up positions according to their capabilities. Just like modern, right? Modern society. But the form of government is aristocracy, with a philosopher king or the modern equivalent at the top. For some people, they seem to think that Plato wanted every state to have a philosopher king. Okay, that's not true. This is not to be taken literally. Okay, basically he says any person who is learned or wise and fit for the job should take up the job. That's what he's saying. So some people think he's trying to advocate a totalitarian form of government, but I don't think that was his point. And others argue that the state is metaphorical, which I agree, okay? Because the interlocutors were invited to imagine what a just city will be like in a dialogue on the conception of justice, right? At the gist of what they came up with was efficiency. People who are best at doing something should do them so that we will have access to the best of products and services. Makes sense, right? Horst Mumbler says, it's big enough, the right shape in a plausible area, and a different angle on what sung means. We could have flooded and then drained. It wouldn't go underwater before elimination of day sites. That's true. You're talking about Santorini, right? Also fit the description. Yeah. Of before elimination of dry sites. Igetu says, yes, a lot of it is still valuable to consider as a metaphor symbolism, which I think dreams are. That is very true. Hi, Dolan. Hi. Surprised that Dolan is here. Dolan, you missed most of it. Right now, I'm talking about the Republic. I'm going to drink tea now while you guys talk some more. Santorini. We have narrowed down Santorini as a possible site. Wait a minute while I blow my nose. Okay, I'm back. Epic. Yeah, epic. But scientists say it's not the right location. It's only also a bit small. It's a bit too small, they said. And also it's near Spain. Yeah, but whatever. But scientists say, yeah, it's true because they fit the description. They had fine arts. They, had there's a volcano. They also were destroyed a volcano and the Minoan civilization was wiped out. Okay, are you guys typing? I still have tea to drink. Also, Dolan, I asked some questions. why people believe that Atlantis was real. Cosmumbler says, in West Africa, I would look at above water digs first. Santorini doesn't feel right to me, but that's just gut. West Africa. They said near Libya. I think I read somewhere somebody said it's near Libya. Northwest Africa is where that structure is. Yeah. Where do you think, Dolan? Atlantis? Do you know where Atlantis? Santorini is too small, lah. But then don't forget Plato at the time, okay, where he lived. He was Greek, right? Don't say yeah. Dolan, have you played the Chinese whisper game? You know, everybody sit around a circle, and then the first person will be giving a sentence or a few sentences, and then after they will keep whispering and whispering to one another. But at the end of the game, what happens? The sentences become very distorted, right? When you were young. So this was what Plato did, okay, in his story in Timaeus. The one who told the story is Critias, who heard it from his relative somewhere, and it came from his grandfather, who heard it from Solon, who went to Egypt and heard it from some priest. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I think that's the biggest clue, no? He was trying to mock everybody. Okay, I can click on this Angetir. Okay, but I will click on it later, okay? And now I'm doing the analysis of the Republic, because when he says about the ideal state, he was talking about the ancient Athens, right? It sounds very suspiciously to the ideal city, to his ideal state in the Republic, his work. Okay, never mind. Let's go back. Are you guys done with this discussion of where it could be? And also, can you guys think about any other moral of the story? Why do you think he told this story, Plato? Apart from drawing attention to the ideal city. And also, because of the problem I said just now. Just to do a recap. Dolan says he is in Atlantis right now. Okay. Old mate McGraw says it's always in the last place you look. Hi! What do you mean? What do you mean? Old mate, where do you think it will be? Because just I was asking them, if they were tasked with finding the Atlantis, how would they go about doing so? What did some of them say? So, okay, Dion, thank you for coming. It's really awesome having you here. Yeah, everybody's male here, right? I was wondering whether are there any females here? Come and say hi, man. Okay, old meat McGraw says, I'll start looking, but I'll stop once I find it. I don't know, I just joined and I'm trying to figure out what we are talking about. We're talking about the Atlantis. The lost city of Atlantis. And basically I said that the only evidence or source comes from Plato's work, Timaeus and Critias, okay? And then in the 15th century, someone wrote about Atlantis, but it was just trying to also conceive of an ideal state. And then it's only in the 19th century that people try to look for it again. Oh, maybe it's real. But I've also given some, in the earlier live stream, I've given some evidence, or not evidence, some arguments to say that he meant it to be like a myth. like a retelling of a myth. It was a fictional thing. Okay, well, you guys figure it out. I will now talk about Plato's Republic. Okay, so where's it just now? Oh, the gist of what they came up with was efficiency. Oh, Mitch McGraw says, I prefer the myth idea. Atlantis is an ideal city that we were all looking for. Yeah, but in Plato's work, Atlantis is not the ideal city, it's the opposite. That's why they were destroyed. Because they were very ambitious and they were very greedy. Then the gods say, have enough of them, I'm going to destroy them. That's what happened. So when the Athenians defeated them, they were swallowed up by earthquake. Angatir says, have you heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh? No, what's that? I think it's in the Bible and the Quran. There's also talking about another civilization, right? What's that? What I don't name right now. I wish somebody would come in and tell me. Yeah, it's a warning. He's basically trying to tell everybody, like, basically your guys are full of shit. Okay, have fun doing homework, Dolan. He says this is the right story, but he wanted to change people's idea. Okay, he's not the kind of person who goes like, do this, do that. No, he's not. Rather, he wanted to change them and he wanted to convince them, and he did it by telling stories because that's how they function. Later, I will explain why. Okay. Oh, Horse Mumbler says the Richard structure or Eye of Africa is recently popular suspect. It looks worthy of investigation to me. Cool. I still don't know what's Eye of Africa. Okay. Okay. Back to Plato's ideal state. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. Efficiency. People who are best at doing something should do them so that we will have access to the best of products and services. Okay, makes sense. It's very TE, right? For some reason. Agatha says, it's a story of this warrior who befriends this dude, then goes on an adventure slaying monsters and such. His friend dies and he goes searching for the seed of immortality. Did he find it? Did he find the seed of immortality? I don't think he did, right? Because if he did, then he'd still be here, right? Or maybe he decided it's not so great after all to be immortal. No, what about this story, Engatir? Why did you tell us this story? Drink my tea. One of the earliest tales. Yeah. Back then, I like to tell stories. And then they write, some of them were like poetry, known as epic poems. But it's mostly to tell a moral of a story. Or, to sing praises. Or just for entertainment. There are many reasons. Okay, so ideal state. People who are best at doing something should do it. So that means people who are best at managing people should manage them. People who are best at being leaders should be leaders. That's what he's saying. Those who have attained wisdom through education and training. So this just city is populated by just people who are moderate in desires, they practice self-control, and they are guided by reason. So fun fact, I think everybody knows by now, Plato was not a proponent of democracy because he thought it would lead to tyranny. He also said people holding political power should not accumulate wealth. So if you want to be rich, take another job. That's what he's saying. This position of power, of political power, is only for the attainment of common good, and you should not be seeking political power in order to get rich. That is Plato's ideal state. Angetusius, the one who has the seed is said to be Noah from the Bible. Oh yeah, I think I read, no, is it Noah? Or was it Moses? He had a very long life. He lived 200 years, something like that. Or was it 500 years, something? And also about the guys who were sleeping. They slept for hundreds of years in the cave. That was very interesting. Then they woke up. Hey, what happened here? Yeah. How come we live so short lives now? Must be our diet, right? Or we become very efficient at killing each other. So I have about 6 points to talk about the Republic. It's very philosophical, but I think that it pays to discuss it. Plato wanted to change our minds, and this is less oxygen. Oh, that's actually a good point. But also more pollution, I guess. We are being slowly killed by things we cannot see and didn't think. So first point, the world is subject to change. Even our minds are self-evolving. That is, it is influenced, changed, or affected by experience and external influence or society, which goes into our conception of the human condition. And this we try to reconcile with other views on human condition imposed by society. Okay, point number 2. This leads to this point. So not only do we change internally, that is our minds is constantly changing, but we can also make changes externally. So we try to change our reality. This is also called self-ordering, right? We are all self-ordering, but within the limit set by the natural order of the universe. Now, this I think is a broad category, and it could include things like physical limitations, natural law, things that are possible. In other words, our minds can redirect or inform our actions by a number of things, including being aware of causation. That means what we can bring about, how much destruction we can cause, okay? And also our purpose, okay? That we decide for ourselves. Everybody's going thinking, what? We have purpose, and we have motives, we have ambitions or whatever that we want to achieve. And when we do so, we achieve a new state. That is, we construct a new reality. The individual self, society, and universe, while can be isolated for study, they are in fact interconnected, okay, for Plato. Angetu says, my theory is something after the flood also made us not live as long. Horsemumler says, Aristotle wrote that masculine republics give way to feminine democracy, which in turn turns into tyranny. Yeah. So he basically agrees also that democracies turn to tyranny. Why do you think he said that? As the argument goes that democracy in the end will pander to the wishes and interests of the majority. And also that minority interests could be subsumed or could be ignored. Somebody said also, right, I think it was in Republic, someone said that in the end, what's going to happen is that the rich people want to protect their interest. And people with property want to protect property. And people who are aristocracy, they want to protect their lineage or whatever, or the ability to continue doing whatever they're doing. Guys, why else do you think that democracy is bad? Or why Plato would think that it is bad? Basically, he's saying the best person for the job should be someone who's very learned and wise. Makes sense. Do you think that he thought that people were not capable of electing such a person? Angetus says, good times create weak men. Weak men cause bad times. Bad times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Rinse and repeat. That's very true. We all go in a cycle. I think it's a constant struggle. Okay, point number 3. But please, guys, stop. Just write whatever you feel like. Number 3. It is possible to identify and extricate an ideal form from the material world. You see, Plato's work is all about ideal form, okay? Ideal state, ideal this, ideal that. Horst Mumbler says, democracy is tyranny of the majority. A controlling majority of mere numbers is right for strong men to take control of. Exactly. Exactly, Horst Mumbler. Well done. Okay, so this is how the ideal state is conceived by using form or of ideas. Okay, we all have the capacity to do this. That's what Plato says. We have the ability to see the universal in the particular. In mathematics, for example, we use numbers, symbols, concept to represent the external physical world. But in philosophy, we use language. So it's like a category broken down or taken apart and split into characteristics, symptoms, manifestation. We strip of embellishment. We get the structure or skeleton to determine participation or place of the thing we are judging, so that we can make judgments out of it, or decisions. Okay. So, for example, we judge whether something is beautiful using the universal concept of beautiful. We judge whether we are happy by using the universal concept of happiness. So we will judge what is ideal state using what is a good state using the universal concept of ideal state. That's what it's trying to do. Ooh. Okay, number 4. For Plato, society is created by the human mind. Okay, in the human mind, it is not natural nor happen by chance. So what happens is that when we have created in our heads, we project it outwards, and it is shared by other members of society. This is also known as collective consciousness. The human world consists of our individual selves and us as a collective in a society. It is made out of form of ideas. Okay, that's the point of Plato's thesis. The mind is an architect of its own reality, and it is through this that we can understand society and societies. On the other hand, play a central part in our changing self. And we are all self-perfecting. We are all getting better. To understand this further, that is self-perfecting and collective consciousness, society identifies and applies values. And this is a never-ending process. Something new is uncovered. Then follows application of values that transcend society. We see this in politics, government, lawmaking, morality, equality, other things. But that's not all. We also have universal ideals that transcends all these specific ideals, which is also known as absolute justice or absolute good. Okay, let's now look at modern examples. Okay, I'm just going to throw out a few, and then maybe you guys can think of others. Example would be equality in pay. Okay, parental leave, a fight against modern forms of slavery, for example. Conscious consumerism, for example, is another one, against mindless consumerism, because now we take responsibility in finding out, right, how products are being manufactured. What else, guys? What other examples that is currently plaguing the modern society? Any complaints? Anything that irritates you at the moment? Now we must have values that transcend society. Tell people, stop being an idiot. You know what? I think that we should not eat so much meat, but yeah, maybe I shouldn't say such things. People are looking for anything to complain about so they can make irrational decisions on these demands. That is true. Can you give some example to complain? But I think, like, sweatshops, that's a worthy complaint, right? We don't want to have children or people paid very little to produce our stuff, right? We care. Some of us care, actually. And then they're trying to make known about this. I mean, like, we didn't know. Ignorance is bliss. But now we know we have to do something about it. I mean, if we choose to. But then that's the thing, right? You want to change everybody's minds. People are too comfortable. They have no real problems to overcome, so they make up things. That's very true. What the problems do they complain? I don't know. In Singapore, they complain about the the train coming late sometimes. Very efficient. Too much charity, which people become dependent on and don't strive to make their own success. That is true. But I do like, you know what I like to do? I like to buy clothes secondhand. I mean, it's not really a problem for me because if I buy them, I can always wash them, have them clean. Because I find that you can find a lot of quality materials, things that last. I don't like to buy from fast fashion that much because they don't last very long. So, yeah. Hence, handouts, I think. In Singapore, we don't really have that problem. Not that much because, well, we do have assistance to give out to poor people or whatever, but majority of us, they are more working. Okay, what the feminism? What about feminism, guys? What do you think about feminism? What about it that you feel it's important to fight for? Hmm? Angatis says, in well-developing countries, it prevents them from making their own clothing industry, which in turn creates more jobs. What do you mean by they cannot have their own clothing industry? So only people from overseas can use them as factory? Really? So they cannot be entrepreneurs? Is it fair? Because they want to force the thing to be low, is it? The price to be low. Feminism doesn't like people who play video games. Really? No, I don't think so. A lot of women play games too, right? I think I watched some Chinese shows about this guy will be defeated, Chinese or Japanese or whatever. This guy will be going to this game room and he'll be playing game, but he always get defeated by a unknown person. So he goes on a quest to look for this unknown person. Turns out it's a girl. Then they fall in love. It's always like that. Also, the same theme reoccurred in that show, the show with Winona Ryder, Stranger Things. The best gamer is also a girl. There is an e-war of feminists and gamers. Can you tell me about it? I don't know why they will be upset about gamers. I didn't know about that. Or is it because of the characters? Because sometimes when I watch anime, I had to close it because they did it like women with very large breasts, and like I said, there was one anime I watched. She discovered that the man she loved was going out with another girl, and then she started to cry and wail and everything. And I had to turn it off because it was unbearable for me to watch. In my last live stream on anime, what did I say about that? It's a fantasy world created by men, right? Basically, anime is about fantasy world, and also, uh, when you try to project the world, you show people because people just imagine in their heads, but then through anime they can actually see. It becomes more real. Then they can decide for themselves. Is this the kind of life I want? And get to say it's because they complain that either the characters are too sexualized or don't have enough female representation, which isn't true. That's true. Like Ghost in the Shell, it wasn't about sex at all, I feel. A lot of women make anime too. It's not gender specific like in the West. That is true. And also, yeah, that is true. Anyway, I was saying we take responsibility now for finding out processes and other variables that goes into products and everything. So society retains its past judgment in the form of institution, laws, tradition, and customs. So what we decide to do today is the basis of our future. So we must examine our decisions. We must examine, we must do a bit of SEing. We must improve on them so that the future be brighter and better. That is the point of Republic and everything else that Plato has written. Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy, Metroid. Tomb Raider, I mean, I find it, I don't know, because the lady, she's very beautiful, but she's also intelligent. So she basically has everything. I don't know why. I mean, I wish I could be like that, very awesome like that. Final Fantasy number 6. I didn't watch any Final Fantasy. Except for the One Wing Angel that because of the song. Peter says Peter likes the soundtrack. That is really quite impressive. I didn't realize that they are capable of putting some awesome soundtrack. They reboot Tomb Raider and made her more fragile. Okay, more realistic, I suppose. I think the Tomb Raider, the latest one that was played by a different actress, she had smaller chest size. And some people were complaining, why is her chest size so small? Like so silly, right? As if that's like relevant. I think I try to make her more realistic, I guess. A bit of power fantasy. Yeah. Tifa from Final Fantasy. Make her chest smaller. Yeah, because I don't know. Nobody has chest like that, okay? Unless you go to to get it altered by surgery. I mean, not nobody. I mean, like most people don't have that kind of body shape. It's a bit difficult to attain in the remake. Okay, I just want to do the closing word. The closing word from Dear Plato. Perfection doesn't exist, or that the world and the people are evil. Okay? Even Plato recognized this, that people are evil and the world is not going to be perfect. But he believed that we are all capable of self-perfecting. So that was the most important thing. Even we can never achieve this ideal state because the truth is a bit far-fetched, right? But we can always strive towards it. We can always strive towards perfection. And as I just said just now, reality is actually a poor imitation of the ideal. Even if we try to make ourselves look beautiful or whatever, we're actually doing a poor imitation of what is actually beautiful sometimes. And for most of us at least. Philosopher Albert Camus says, realization that life is absurd is not the end, but the beginning. Isn't that awesome? Awesome, right? So we don't have to be depressed all the time. Because it's just the beginning, because we can now work, we can now get better. Just have to go back and look at our judgments. We have to be mindful about what we take as authority also. That was his message. Horst Mumbler says, Mitumba is an interesting, controversial topic. Some countries in Africa are implementing bans hoping to preserve local textile industry and tradition. So Mitumba is this, implement bans to preserve local textile industry. That's actually not bad. Otherwise you'd be lost, right? I think I watched a documentary about geisha. Geisha is not what we think it is right now, but they trying to preserve also the tradition of being beautiful, being elegant, and also being very talented in music. So I think that if they don't try to preserve all these things, you're going to be lost. And then it will be like a myth. or they miss the important rationale. So being geisha is not necessarily about, it's not about, you know, prostituting yourself, but there are other features to it that are important that should be also preserved. And Gettier says, reality is an inspiration to move towards an ideal. That's very true. That was also the point. We just look around, we see what's wrong, and then we try to, you know, identify values that we want, values that will transcend society. Want to change everybody's mind. Because like he says, society is made up of people's minds. See, wasn't it awesome? Anything else to add, Hosmumbler? I really enjoyed this discussion, you know, and also this searching for this thing. There were a lot of like gems to uncover, and I was so excited to share it with you guys. And I hope you guys will become wiser. Okay, guys, it's already 1 hour. So it's time for me to say goodbye. And thank you very much. Oh, the next discussion. I wanted to do psychedelic era, you know, in the 60s. I want to talk about it as a subculture because it's interesting, right? To know how come they are so different from their parents. But I'm very worried about one thing. I'm worried that it will seem as if I'm trying to promote the drug use or something, which is not going to be it at all. But I would like to talk about it, talk about music, talk about what happened, talk about the events that caused them to be different, talk about why they're so lax. Also, drug taking just a small part of the whole thing. So I was thinking next week is going to be about psychedelic. Yay! I'll try to dress up like the 60s. Okay. Okay, guys, thank you very much for coming. It is time to end my live stream. Next week, I think my live stream will be on a Monday or Tuesday around this time. And the thing will be on psychedelia era as a subculture. Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be fun. I hope I won't get striked for trying to promote drug use or whatever. I say now that I'll never promote drug use, okay? On clothing and self-determination. Oh, that's nice. Self-determination, like what? Like in governance? That'd be really awesome. Thank you very much, Host Mumbler. Okay, guys, thank you for coming. See you next week. And also, if you want me to discuss any other topics, just let me know, okay? Write to me or put in the comment box below. See ya. I love you all.